Hello and welcome to another episode of Condo Insider. My name is Jane Sugimura and I'm your host for this program. And Condo Insider is about condo living and it's for people who live and work in condos. And my guest today is Raelene Tenno, and she's the program director for the Hawaii Council of Community Associations. Hi, Raelene.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you for joining me again. And we're doing this remotely, which is very appropriate because the topic is, doing seminars during a pandemic. And
right.
In fact, that's what you do for the Hawaii Council, right? You're the one who sets up the seminars that we do. And so why don't you tell me what is it that you do as the program director?
So the board will decide on certain topics, or if we find something that's trending, we'll organize a seminar based upon that. So usually we'll take suggestions for speakers, and I will contact the speakers to see if they're interested in speaking on that particular topic. And then I coordinate the room, the meals, the flyers, the marketing, and all of that kind of stuff.
Okay, and this is a very important part of the Hawaii Council's mission, isn't it, these seminars?
Yes, that's how we reach out to everybody to make sure that they comply. Well, we educate them to make sure that they really know and can comply with 514B on their fiduciary duties and responsibilities and what they're supposed to do as board of directors.
Okay, and why is this important? I mean, why do we care? And why do we care if people get educated?
According to the DCCA, 50%, they get a lot of complaints, so part of this is educating them so that they're not thinking that they're right when technically they have to follow the statute, so they can't just go off on left field. They have to stay within the statute of what they can and cannot do,
Right, and board members, just like anybody who's listening to the show, who's an apartment owner, because any apartment owner can be a board of director person, right? You can be elected to the board. You have to be an owner to get elected. So really, the people who are board members are just like any other apartment owner, and they come to the board with their own experiences, and maybe they're a lawyer or a plumber or a teacher or a nurse, right? And they buy into this condominium project, and they're just, like anybody else. But they are given the under most declarations, they're told that they are the ones who run this project. They are the ones who go out and hire the property manager, who then hires, staff, and then you hire the contractors who do the landscaping and the rubbish removal and all of that stuff. And, so it seems like a huge undertaking. And for people who are just ordinary homeowners, how are they able to do this?
To get onto the board?
No, how are they able, to do their jobs? It just seems like it's not something that comes naturally to them. And so, they're elected to the board, and how are we involved in, why are we involved in education?
As board of directors, they really need to understand the 514B, which is the condo laws. And for HCCA, we help facilitate that knowledge by doing these educational training seminars, or right now we're doing it via Zoom, because we still want to be able to reach out to everybody, even though we're in this pandemic. So we do various topics that they all need to know to really understand.
Okay, and in fact, we're one of the seminars we do is a board training, and we'll be talking about that later on in this episode. But right now, the thing about training people is what kind of disputes. You mentioned you went to you looked at the numbers, the DCCA, and there were all these complaints. What kind of complaints are being made to the state of Hawaii?
They said the 50% of their complaints are about condo docs.
Uh-huh.
It's a big number.
And so what the dispute is, I mean, there are condo docs, which are, and usually when you buy into a condo, you get the declaration and the bylaws and the house rules, and maybe, the last three most recent board meetings, and you get maybe a financial statement. And, all of these are necessary for you to decide whether or not this is a condominium you want to live in, right? But then, and then once you live in the condominium, then maybe you wonder how come, the gardening, the landscaping, doesn't look right. And so you want to find out, well, geez, what's the board doing about landscaping? And so you ask the board, can you show me your invoices for the landscapers? Because I want to know what you're paying them for, because it looks crappy, right? Isn't that the kind of stuff that, and or the resident manager or the site manager, and all of a sudden they want to see the contract to make sure, that the guy is doing his or her job. And so, they have, you're the owner, and you figure, hey, I'm entitled to see these documents, aren't I? And the state law says you can see them, right?
Correct.
And so, but the way you try to get them is that you have to ask the board. And what you're saying is that a lot of the complaints that are being made to the state of Hawaii about condo boards is owners are asking for documents. Things like, I want to see a contract, or I want to see that invoice, or I want to see this piece of paper because I have a concern, or I want to see the minutes. I wasn't able to, go to the meeting, so I want to see the minutes for, January, February, March, right? And so if all these complaints about, getting condo docs, what seems to be the problem? Because the statute says you have to turn them over. If you're an owner, you make a request, they got to give it to you in 30 days, right?
I think some of the there might be a disconnect with the managing agent, because I've heard some people say that it has to be, instead of using the affidavit that's on the RICO website, it has to be the managing agent's own form, which is not public knowledge. You find that out through the process, So that's some of it. So it's some of the things, or it could be just blocked by a board. Why the board wants to block it, I don't know. I mean, they have whatever their reasons are, but they and for that reason, that means that the boards need to be educated on what they can and cannot do. There's this transparency thing that they have to do.
And I think, boards are intimidated by some of their property managers, because they figure, oh, well, we don't understand the statute, and I'm only a nurse, and I don't know anything about condominium. I don't know anything about 514B. So you got to tell me what to do. And, I think, what we try to do in our board training is to say, no, according to your declaration, the board is the one who is authorized to operate this $1 million project, multi-million-dollar project, and it's your job to go out there and hire the experts, and you interview them, and you hire the best people to help you do the day-to-day operation of this multi-million-dollar project, and to keep everybody in the buildings safe and happy, right? I mean, that's basically their task. And I mean, when you say it, it sounds easy, but when you try to implement it, I mean, you have maybe 7 to 9 homeowners who are acting as board of directors, and there's some dynamics that come into play where, maybe you have a board president who might be a bully and 8 sheep, right? That's the worst case scenario. Or you might have a board president who's a wishy-washy person, and you got some proactive people on the board with their own private agenda, like, oh, yeah, I want you to go against the design specs. I want to put an air conditioner, but I want to put it on my wall, and I don't want to put it outside, the split air. I don't want to put it outside my window. I want to put it on the wall. And somehow they've managed to get that through because they bully people, because they, because of their personalities or whatever. But what I think what our job is that we try to teach people you can't do that, right? We try to tell the boards, and we try to tell owners that there are rules that apply to everybody. And, so I think that's a lot of our focus when we do these educational seminars.
Right. And one of the things that board of directors have to remember, if they look at their management contract, the managing agent has a clause in that they're held harmless. So even if they did something wrong, they're held harmless.
Because they're
So the board's
basically, they're
working at
basically
the direction
hired
of
by the board.
Right.
And
So
so
boards
if the
can't just
board
say,
doesn't
"Oh,
know what
well,"
they're doing. Yeah, if the
Right.
board doesn't know what they're doing, then the property manager can just run amok. And that's why
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we
and the board is
educate.
still on the hook no matter what. They're still on the hook no matter what. And that's
Right.
what people have to realize, they can't point finger at somebody else for the blame.
Right. And that also affects, things like directors and officers, the D&O insurance.
Right.
Right. And I know I've talked to Sue Savio about this, and one of the reasons why she is such a supporter of educating boards is that, if we could somehow manage to come up with a standard or some kind of a law or rule or regulation that says all boards, before they, serve, they've got to take so many hours of education. I mean, there's a likelihood that maybe we could get the insurance premiums to come down a little bit.
Yeah, because there's a lot of crazy members of the board out there that really think they have their own they're their own, I don't know, own soldier to their own tune. They can do what they want, but they no. There's in everything. There's always rules and regulations and compliance, and just because you're on a board, there's still stuff that you have to follow. Rules,
Right, and
514B.
Right, and it's important for both unit owners and board members to be educated so that everybody knows that
Right.
these are the rules. And one
Right.
of the basic rules that I think we harp on is fiduciary duty, right?
Right.
And that just means that if you serve on a board, you can't have your own private agenda. You don't go on the board because you want special favors, for when you want to do something with your unit, you're on the board. So yeah, you get it slam dunk. That's not how it happens. And when you sit on the board, you need to understand that any decision you make, it has to, and it will be judged. If you get sued, the jury who is listening to the court case is going to be told, you got to listen to the facts and determine whether this board acted in the best interest of everybody in the condominium project. And that's what fiduciary duty means. And that means that, you don't have conflicts of interest. You follow the business judgment rule, which says, if the business judgment rule says, right, if you don't know, you got to ask. Right. And we all know that people who sit on boards, they're not experts. Right. So they go out and they get a legal opinion if it's a legal issue. If it's finances, they go out and get a financial accountant to write them an opinion. If it's a construction issue, you hire an engineer or a contractor or a plumbing engineer, but you hire somebody, right?
Yeah, right.
And
a professional.
And you get them to make you a written opinion. And that way, if you make your opinion based on the opinion of an expert, then you're protected under the D&O. Even if the decision ends up to be wrong, you would still be protected under the officers and directors insurance. But I don't think, a lot of board members understand this. And what they do is, they make these decisions willy-nilly, and boards are getting sued, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Yep. Hot topic.
Yeah. And it's like, so that's one reason why, I think we need people to come to these seminars. And during COVID, nobody's doing seminars, right? Why aren't they doing the seminars?
Because you can't do large gatherings.
Right. And so that's the challenge, right? How do you do the education during a pandemic? I mean, how do you figure that out? I mean, what kinds of things do you have to look at?
So because normally we held them at the Haleko Hotel, and since the whole pandemic started and the shutdown started, they're not making any reservations. And Haleko is military, so they take direction from the military, not so much CDC guidelines or any of that. So they canceled pretty much most of ours, even through August is officially canceled. So what I did is I went out and found another venue, which was really difficult to find. But we found Oahu Veteran Center that's willing to accept a reservation, but it's still, everything is still subject to any future, either current or even future restrictions that they may impose, the city or the state may impose. So at least we can plan. And if there's no other further restrictions, at least we can hold the event. So the next August one, August 20th, will be at Oahu Veteran Center in Foster Village. Parking is better. You don't have to walk across the street. It's the hall that we're going to be in can hold between 200 and 280, but we're only limited to 50 people to keep in with the CDC guidelines.
Okay,
And then we're going to be. Go ahead.
No. When we did seminars before, we always had more than 50 people. So how are we going to be educating people if we can only, if our crowd is going to be limited to 50?
So we're going to be recording it. We're going to have a webcam, and we're going to try it two ways with a Zoom webinar and also a webcam. So we're going to record it, and then we're going to have it available for purchase viewing within like a month after we get everything set up.
Okay. Okay. So that means that, you know, the people can come to the seminar, and if they can't make the seminar, they can, you know, get the recording later. Well, you know, why don't we take a break now, and we'll come back and we'll talk about what kinds of seminars we can do under the new constraints. Okay. So let's take a 1-minute break now.
Aloha, I'm Christine Linders, a physical therapy specialist and the host of Movement Matters. My show is designed to teach you the simplest and most effective treatment strategies to get you out of pain and back to doing what you love. If you or someone you know is having pain in a certain area of the body and would like a free assessment in treatment over media or in person, and then come on the show to talk about it, email us at thinktechmovementmatters@gmail.com. Or if you have a topic you would like to know more about, please email us. My goal is to decrease pain all over the world, inspiring people to take better care of their bodies to enjoy life to the fullest. I look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome back to Condo Insider. My name is Jane Sugimura. I'm your host today. And we were talking to my guest, Raelene Tenno. She's the program director for Hawaii Council of Community Associations. Well, welcome back to the show, Raelene. And we were talking about, you know, doing seminars now in this pandemic. And you were talking about, you know, doing them at this new location, the Veteran Center at Foster Village, right?
Right.
And you have to do it with a smaller crowd, but you're going to be recording. You're going to be recording the programs and then offering them to people to view at their leisure later on, right?
Yeah. It also.
And where will they be available?
It's going to be on our site. So some of the other logistics of it is still being worked out. So our first one will be our test. So August will be our test one. But it'll also solve the issue where some of the people that want to attend, but they can't because they're working, because normally we have them on Thursdays. So it will reach a bigger audience if we have it available for a purchase viewing later as well.
Okay. Now, for the 50 people who show up at the Veterans Center, do they have to wear a mask?
Yes. And we have to temperature check everyone.
Okay.
And I believe they said there's a short questionnaire that they have to fill out before they enter. So everybody's going to be 6 feet apart. The tables and chairs all have to be sanitized. Even the food we're bringing in is going to be a little bit different than what we normally have at the Halikoa. So it's probably going to be more like, it's not going to be buffet, definitely not buffet. So it's probably going to be more like a boxed either bento or a plate lunch of some sort. And we're still going to be making sure that we have available to choose from for the people that are vegetarians, that a special kind of a meal.
Okay. So what's the first topic going to be when we do this seminar at the Veterans Center?
So the first one on August 20th will be on reserves. We have Sean from Reserve Study. He's actually in California, but he flies here. He has a list of clients here that he does their reserve studies for. So he's going to be flying in, but he's also going to be, it's his regular business routine. So he'll be here while he's working, and he has a PowerPoint on reserves. He's also going to give us a scenario like, well, what happens when you defer, and what happens to your maintenance fees over time when it comes to a major repair issue. And then we'll have on the panel also Susavio and an attorney from Chris Porter's office to also reinforce the importance of making sure everybody complies with those reserve study requirements and follow.
Right. And for people who don't know what a reserve study is, why don't you just give them a short definition of what is a reserve study?
It's a kind of like an accounting. So like, even if you lived in a house, your roof is going to last 15, 20 years, whatever the material is on there. So say it's going to last 20 years, you have to make sure you have that money set aside so that when it comes 20 years later, you have the funds to repair. You can't let your roof just leak, so it's all your items surrounding your condo. And it could be landscaping. Some people need to rip up the grass or replant new grass, or even the plumbing. They have to make allowances in their budget for plumbing repairs regarding the landscaping, because sometimes the pipes only last so long, PVC pipes. Painting, like places like Mililani, I think their requirement is to paint the building every 7 years, so you have to put out of the maintenance fees, you have to put money into your reserves so that you have money to pay for those when the time comes.
And the whole reason for setting up the reserves, and this is why the legislature made it mandatory over 25 years ago, was to stop special assessments.
Right.
And I think it started in Waikiki, where you had all the snowbirds running the condominiums, right? And so they didn't set aside reserves. And so if you bought into a condominium in year 10 and they decided to replace the roof, you got assessed $10,000. And it's like, wait, I just bought this. I mean, how come I'm getting specially assessed? And it says, well, we need a new roof. And, so since we don't have money in the operating account, we're just going to have to take the number of units and divide it by the cost. And your share is $10,000. And, so that's why the legislature really set up that reserve, because in fact, I got calls from Mazie Hirono way back then saying, what the hell are you guys doing? Don't you set up reserves? And, well, it's like, it's voluntary. And she says, I'm tired of people calling me and telling me they've been specially assessed because there's nothing in the bank account to pay for the roof repair or, a big project, that is not something that comes up every annually. So that's in the operating budget. So that's why it's really important for people to come and learn about the reserve study and how to use it to do their planning, right?
Right. Right.
And especially now, right? When the economy is just opening up and there's all these people who lost their jobs, and we don't even know if people are going to be able to afford to pay their maintenance fees, right? Because I know we sat
Yeah.
down with our reserve and reserve expert a couple weeks ago, and I told him, I said, we were going to set aside 9%, maybe 9 to 10% because our building's old, and we got to build up our reserves. But I don't think we can do that because we have people who lost their jobs, and we'll be lucky if we can do 5% increase on maintenance fees this year because of the pandemic. And so that's going to be the challenge, I think, with every association, because if they have owners or residents, who pay the rent, who got laid off or lost their jobs, I mean, there's a cash flow problem that's going to affect everybody. The trickle up, trickle down, whatever it's called, right? It's going to affect all of us.
Right. Right. So if you rent out your unit, and your rent really covers your mortgage and barely covers your maintenance fee, and just so you're paying out of pocket, and your tenant doesn't pay, you're really going to be, depending on what your income level is, but you're going to be suffering a little bit. Building will suffer because they don't have that.
And for older buildings, it's very crucial because, I mean, it's just really hard to keep, raising your maintenance fees, especially when you've got people with fixed incomes living in your building. And now you've got the pandemic and you've got people who are maybe just starting to go back to work, and maybe they've used up all their PPP money and all their unemployment benefits, because that's going to stop, right? That's going to stop in August. Yeah.
End of this month it ends.
Yeah. So it's going to stop. And so unless the federal government or the state of Hawaii, decide to release grants or other money, I mean, I think we're all going to, have to, reevaluate, how are we going to get money? How is the association going to get cash flow to pay for these projects, not only for this year, but to, to fund the reserves to take care of the big projects that are going to happen in the future? Because next year we've got the fire safety statute, right? The ordinance, everybody's got to finish their LSE by May 3, 2021. And then you got another 3 years after that to comply. And 3 years isn't a whole lot of time when you're talking about 360 buildings in the city and county of Honolulu, right? So I mean, so people, this is a very important seminar that people should attend.
Yep. And it's a hard time right now with the LSE, and now you got the pandemic. So people really got to watch their finances. And then when people do that during that time period, even on your personal budget, if you lost your job, you really start looking at what you need to eliminate, and some of it may have been that you planned to do a painting project, so with a condo, I mean, do they need to do it this year? Can they wait till next year when things are a little bit better? Do they need to spend that money, under reserves now, or should they just wait? But if it was a roof repair, they know you need to go ahead and do it, but they need to make a decision, a professional decision, and do their due diligence to make sure that they're going to be okay if they defer something that was planned,
Yeah. Okay. So that seminar is set for August 20th, right?
Correct. 12 noon. But I tell people they should plan to be early. The presentation is going to start at 12 noon, and lunch will probably start around 11. But they should plan to be a little bit early because of the restrictions and the temperature checks that we have to make sure it's done.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we've kind of run out of time. So hopefully that's, we get a crowd, for that seminar.
There's a question.
Are there any certifications available that you would recommend board members try to attain? Like, is the HOA Board of Directors certification or learning course available?
Okay, there aren't any certifications for board members right now. In fact, there was a resolution in the legislature, but because of the truncated session, how they stopped in the middle and then they opened up in June 22nd, the resolution never made it out. I talked to somebody at the Senate last night, and it never made it out of committee. And so we're going to introduce it again next year. But you know, we're trying to work to try to get certificates for board members, you know, mainly because we think that it's going to make an impact on insurance, you know, for the building. If you get all your board members certified that they've been educated or they've passed a minimum amount of courses, I mean, that's going to, you know, we think it's going to make an impact on their insurance premiums. So yeah, that's something we're working on. It's just that this session, you know, because of the COVID-19, it just never made it out. But anyway, thank you all for joining us today for the show. And next week, we're going to have another interesting show. So please tune in to Condo Insider next week, Thursday at 3 o'clock. Thank you and mahalo.